Okay, let's start. Any questions?
So can you upload the recordings for the previous classes?
Uh, okay, so only yesterday's not done, right? Other older ones are there. Okay, I will do it today. Okay, so
And so you've given some homework. So could you just write that down once? I think a few people missed it.
okay. Uh, okay, so that I will put it on the VLearn homework problem. Uh, I Okay. So it is about the critical coordinate. There are four coordinate patches there based on the r is equal to 2m. Because of the log coming, so you have to divide that into different region. So that all the four transformations are given in the book. We have done some derivation. uh, it should be, you can look into the book and then write it down and then plot the r is equal to constant surfaces. So I'll put that on the wheeler. So let us continue with the this thing. Any questions? Okay. So let us continue with it. Today, we are going to do solve Einstein's equation with the spherical symmetry and with the matter. So this is a solution to Einstein's equation with the matter. Okay. So we have looked at the spherically symmetric vacuum solution, which is a Schwarzschild solution. And now let us look at the uh, with the matter. So there are various kinds of solutions to spherically symmetric Einstein's equation with various type of matter. So let us concentrate only on one. So we have Einstein's equation, which is basically given by GAB, which is a Einstein tensor, is equal to TAB. So GAB is divergence free part of Ricci tensor, and then on the other hand we have a matter. So now we are looking at the perfect fluid. So the perfect fluid energy
Hello.
momentum. Hello.
So, can you
Huh.
hear me? So,
Yeah.
I think there's a G upper A and lower B, and how is it equal to R lower A B?
No, this is GAB. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this I'm just showing this is not equal, so it is arrow. Okay. So okay, the perfect fluid energy momentum tensor is given by TAB is equal to rho plus T into UA UB minus GAB into P, where rho is density. Yes, is there any question? No. Okay. So rho is density and P is the pressure for the fluid. Okay, the UA is for velocity. So you can have a for velocity. This is a time-like fluid. So where UA is a time-like, that in our case, for time-like, you have a UA is equal to 1. You could have null fluid too. Null fluid means radiation or light. So this solution was also possible for the radiation or the null fluid. But we are not looking at the null fluid. We are looking at only at the matter that is time-like fluid. So this solution is useful for the relativistic star. You could impose the spherical symmetry for the spherically symmetric star. You could have a rotating star. It gets complicated. And at least in the spherically symmetric star, you can show that the exterior solution, vacuum solution, is a Schwarzschild. Interior solution is also called the Schwarzschild interior. So this you have density or the fluid, which is a finite. It goes to 0 at the radius of the star. You have radius of star, and then outside the star it is a vacuum, and this matches with the Schwarzschild. Interior is what we are now looking at. It is a static star with the perfect fluid solution. It is possible to solve and match them. On the other hand, rotating case, it is not possible to match with the Kerr metric, or at least so far it has not been possible to do that. So one of the basic equation which TAB satisfies is the conservation law, so that the divergence of TAB equal to 0. So this has to be explicitly satisfied by the energy momentum tensor given here, perfect fluid or anything else. So it has to satisfy, so that the Einstein's equation naturally satisfies the 0 divergence on the both side, because Einstein tensor has a 0 divergence. So let us look at the spherically symmetric system. We are looking at the interior of a star, which is spherically symmetric and filled with the perfect fluid. So earlier we have seen that the spherically symmetric line element can be written as like this: e to the power 2 nu, e to the power 2, no, e to the power nu, which is function of r, dt square, minus e to the power lambda r dr square, minus r square d theta square, plus sine square theta d phi square. Of course, outside we know e to the power t nu is a 1 minus 2m by r. E to the power nu outside is equal to 1 minus 2m by r, and e to the power lambda is 1 minus 2m r by minus 1. So we have seen this, but now we need to solve this, putting into Einstein's equation and solve inside what is the solution. Now we need to compute Einstein's equation, that is GAB is equal to RAB. Last time we have had calculated RAB, we could have done with that, but since it is so long back, you can just have a fresh start. We compute GAB, Einstein tensor. It looks like calculations get slightly simpler if you do GAB is equal to RAB minus half delta AB into R. So it's just coming from experience, nothing else. You can see that the equation gets a lot simpler. Otherwise, you can calculate this directly, and then you see that there are some extra terms which would go away, and you could have, and this is equal to minus kappa times TAB. Of course, if you want to solve, don't want to compute Einstein's equation, just want to stick to your gun and just do with RAB, then you can do that too. Then you have to write Einstein's equation as a TAB minus half GAB into T. So this equation you have to solve. There is no specific advantage or disadvantage using any one of them. So we will use Einstein's equation. That is a standard way of doing. So we have to calculate. I am not going through the whole calculation. I will end up doing all sorts of mistakes. So you can see that I am directly giving. You can check yourself whether you get this result. G00, the Einstein tensor 00 component, it can be written as e to the power minus lambda by r square. Then the whole thing is multiplied by e to the power lambda prime minus 1. So this you can check it out, and then you can further simplify this. You can pull this in, and then you can write it as a 1 by r square into 1 plus r into e to the power minus lambda prime minus e to the power minus lambda. This can be further simplified. It's a straightforward algebraic calculation. It is now it is not clear why it should be written like this, but somehow later you will see that whole thing gets simplified if you write this expression with the following form. Okay, there is no justification at this stage other than it is written as some nicely as a perfect differentiation. So G00 is written as a 1 by r square d by dr r of r into 1 minus e to the power minus lambda. So this is the final form of G00. We have a diagonal element, diagonal metric, and it is has only 3 independent values. Rest of them are either 0 or repeating. So G11 can be also straightforward calculated. You get 1 by r square into 1 minus e to the power minus lambda 1 by r into e to the power minus lambda into mu prime. So this is expression for G11, that is upper and lower, the 1 component. You can easily see that G33 is also equal to G22. They are same. That is one of the advantage writing in the this upper and lower. If you have a upper and upper or lower and lower, then there would be some factor multiplying it. So here in this case, it is much simpler. So you can write that as a minus lambda by 2 into mu double prime plus half into mu prime square minus half lambda prime mu prime plus nu prime by r minus lambda prime by r. So this is the expression. Here we have a full of complete Einstein tensor. So let's go ahead and look at the TAB. TAB cross one upper, one lower can be simply written as a diagonal of rho minus P and minus P. Okay, it's straightforward. So UA, the velocity UA or lower can be written as some normalizing constant into A0 static. So this is the meaning of static start. That means that the element is not moving anywhere. It is simply staying at rest, and it is also spherically symmetric. So from this calculation and the normalizing constant, you can find out by UA is equal to 1. This is equal to e to the power 2 psi is equal to G00. This implies e to the power 2 psi e to the power nu is equal to 1, or simply psi is equal to e to the power minus 2 by 1. So this is what we have for the expression, but we are not really using it. So let's go ahead and compute the divergence of TAB B equal to 0. So this had to be made sure explicitly. It gives us some relation between pressure and density. So this comes as a conservation law. So we have to compute this explicitly. So let's just remind ourselves a tensor identity, which is del A. I think we have used it earlier. So you can remind or look into book and whatever it is. So this expression, divergence of TAB for the symmetric tensor is given by this equation, square root of minus G into minus TCD into GXB GCD. We have to use this expression. So that is only way to simplify. Otherwise, taking the covariant derivative and divergence and all that thing takes a lot of algebra. So we need the square root of minus G, which you can calculate. This implies that G is equal to, it's only diagonal matrix, so you have a simply product of all diagonal element, which gives you the determinant. So this is equal to r to the power 4 sine square theta. There is a minus sign here. So the square root of minus G is equal to e to the power half into nu plus lambda r square sine theta. So this is a determinant of a metric tensor taken square root. This comes very often. So that is a value which we have. Now we got to compute the divergence. So let's simply look at it. Lot of algebra we can avoid. This has lot of repeated value and so on. Only thing which gives the different value is this. You can calculate. It has a 4 component. TA0 component, all that satisfies the trivial condition. Only one which gives a non-trivial result is a component this. So this we got to compute. Rest of them you can compute and satisfy yourself that it doesn't give any additional interesting results. They all either go to 0 or it comes out to be not very useful. So let's compute this. This is a bit longish calculation. There are too many terms involved. We got to do it bit carefully. Okay, so we have to do this summation. So we see that the first term has only term which is dx1 into t1 1, because tab is also diagonal, so we retain only one term. Rest of the term don't appear. And the next term, because this is a summed over all the four dimensions, there are two summation for C and D, and all are differentiated with respect to R. There is no mercy here. All the component of metric tensors are functions of R, so nothing is going to go away. Only simplification comes because TAB is a diagonal, so you can see explicitly substitute and you get this expression. Then T11 G11 by X1 plus T22 G22 by 1 plus T33 G33 by X1. X1 is basically R, so you have whole this thing have to be calculated. So let's do it. The first expression, we need a little longer space, so let us write like this.
Can
1
you
by
scroll
R.
up a little bit once? The first line of delete TA1.
This one
Yes, just a second.
further here.
No, it's fine. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, so let us substitute for the square root of G. We get minus mu plus lambda to the power this, there is a half here, and then d by dr, it's a partial differential with respect to r. You have a r square e to the power 1 by 2 into lambda plus mu. Then you have minus p. Okay. Then on the other side, see, we want G0 upper one. So we have a G01. No, we have this one. So this G upper one, if we want both of them, then we need to multiply by G00 into this. So this is actually rho, and that is G00 into rho is actually what we have is a G00. So with that same way you can calculate for everything, and then expression which you get would be half into E prime plus the three terms would have very similar things. So the first one you would get from G00, and then this term would have a lambda half lambda prime p. Okay, the last one would have there are two, both would give the same result, so you simply have 1 by r into p. Okay, so this corresponds to rho, G00 corresponds to rho, T11 is the first one coming here. These two gives this, that half goes away with that. Okay, and then there is a mistake here. You need 2 because the r square, 2r would come. The sine square would cancel out. So, okay, we can further simplify this. This goes as a 2r. There is a minus sign plus half nu prime plus lambda prime into p plus minus dp by dr, and then whole of these things, half nu prime rho plus half lambda prime plus 2r into p. You cancel out the terms, they would nicely cancel out, and then what you left with is minus half nu prime p plus rho is equal minus dp by dr. So this has to be 0, and then we can write it neatly. What you get here is basically dp by dr is equal to minus half p plus rho into nu prime. So this is a one which comes because of the divergence of TAB B equal to 0 implies only one equation. There are 4 equations, but they all not giving anything. Only one of them giving a useful solution, and rest of them are completely useless. So this is what we get is the first of the equation. This need to be combined now with the Einstein's equation to get the full consistent solution to the spherically symmetric star. So any questions so far?
Sir,
Yeah.
could you go back to the last slide?
Yeah. So this is the last slide. Basically, the messy part of divergence of TAB is equal to 0. This is what it looks like. And then we combine this equation with the Einstein's equation, and then we try to solve them. Is it done?
Yes.
Okay. So let us get all the Einstein's equation together. This one. Okay. So let us play a simple trick here. So this is the first of the Einstein's equation, Einstein tensor. So this should be equal to, actually, this should be equal to minus kappa into rho as per our calculations. So this is the first of the Einstein's equation. So we play a simple trick here. So we call this whatever inside as 2m of r. Okay. So it's a function of r, so you can't treat it as a constant. That means 2m we define. Okay. This is a definition. Define 2m is equal to r into 1 minus e to the power minus lambda. Or if you look at other way, you get e to the power minus lambda is equal to 1 minus 2m r. Okay, 1 minus 2m by r. So this is by definition. You see that this comes from the Schwarzschild. Do you get the idea? This from the Schwarzschild. in Schwarzschild, G11 component, that is what you have it here, is actually 1 minus 2m by r to the power minus 1, or that here simplified to 1 minus 2m by r is equal to e to the power minus lambda. There m is constant, but here m is not constant. M is a function of r till the radius of star, where rho goes to 0, and then that is what you have. So substituting this back into the Einstein's equation, what you get is simply 1 by r square d by dr of m of r is equal to minus kappa into rho, or you get dm by dr is equal to minus kappa rho r square by 2. So this is the first of the Einstein's equation for the how the mass changes inside the star as you propagate, and eventually when rho becomes 0 on the surface of the star, m reaches some maximum value. So that is what you have is one of the Einstein's equation. Now let us look at the second Einstein's equation. So this has to come from combining this with the this equation. Okay, you got to combine these two equations, then you would get the expression for nu. So what you basically you do is that from the divergence of this thing is 0, you find a nu prime there. There is, where is it gone? Okay, let us, okay, here there is a nu prime. Okay, this nu prime you substitute in this equation here, and then you would get the second of the Einstein's equation. Let us take it back there. So one equation is this. The second equation is this. Okay. Now you see that this is the dp by dr, all these, and then you have a derivative of nu, and you have a derivative of nu here. Other things are lambda here. So you replace them, substitute for lambda, and then you would simply get an equation which is nu prime is equal to minus 1 by r plus e to the power lambda by r plus k into p r e to the power lambda. So now you can simply substitute. We already know what is this guy. We already know what is this guy. Okay, that we got from this equation, or rather this equation here. Okay, so e to the power lambda can be substituted, and then we get dp by dr is equal to minus kappa 2 kappa into p plus rho into r divided by 1 minus 2 mr by r, and p plus 1 by 3 rho. So it's just algebra. You can substitute back and get this. So you have basically now two equations, one which says how the rate of change of pressure goes across the star, And the second thing is how the mass changes across the star. Once you solve these two coupled differential equation, you would simply get the solution to the star. You can put the boundary condition, various boundary condition. To start with, you can put the boundary condition that the pressure is a maximum at the center. You can say the density is maximum in the center. So P C and P and rho C are maxima. So rate of change of pressure is 0 in the center. So, and then you can integrate. One of the problem here, you can see that you have pressure and density, which both are there, but unless you have some relation between the pressure and density, this equation cannot be solved, because there is not enough equation to solve for both. You have mass, you have so we have these two equations, differential equation, which are ordinal differential equation. Then you have mass, you have density, and you have pressure, and all that. You cannot all get from two equations. So you need what is known as equation of state. Equation of state is which relate P and rho, that you can have various equation of state. The polytropic equation of state is given as a P as a rho power n, and then that is very popular among the astrophysicists. But one can construct based on the microscopic physics, statistical physics and other thing, one can construct the relation between the pressure and density. You have this neutron star where degeneracy pressure. For that, you can also have a density and pressure relation. The relativistic and non-relativistic matter, where you have rho and P, whether rest mass is more than the energy of the particle, kinetic energy of particle. So you can have all that and solve, and then you get basically the equation state of the relativistic star. So this is what is known as a TOV equation. This T stands for Tolman, O stands for Oppenheimer, and V stands for Volkoff. So these three gentlemen are associated with these two differential equation. This is a spherically symmetric star with the given equation of state. You can solve them. So this is essentially what we mean by solving the equation of state for the relativistic star. Any questions? Of course, this has to be done numerically. There is no way of solving it analytically. For the specific cases of equation of states, you can solve the polytropic index. Few polytropic index, you can solve it exactly, but they may not be of great interest. But for most of the realistic cases, you have to numerically integrate. But it's not a big deal. It's a fairly simple differential equation, two first order differential equation. You can simply write down a simplest of code and solve this and get the structure of relativistic star. Okay, any questions? Yes? No questions? Okay, if there are no questions, let us go ahead. So we are going to solve another interesting case of non-vacuum solution, or the matter solution with the matter. So this is what we call is the universe itself. Okay, so there is another interesting case we have seen. In this case, spherically symmetric star, what we have seen is that we have a star here of a certain radius. Here you have rho and p. Then you have a relation between the p and rho, whatever it is, polytropic or something else. And then at some stage, you have a condition here, rho c and pc, which increases the rate of constant pressure. And you can also put it is a maximum here, and then you integrate and then come to with the boundary condition, rho of r equal to r is equal to 0, and rho of r p of r equal to 0. That defines the radius of star. And outside you have a Schwarzschild solution with the total mass here of the total mass of the star be m, and then you have a Schwarzschild solution with mass m that matches with that. Of course, Schwarzschild radius is not significant here. It may be somewhere deep inside star, so like sun. So it doesn't matter where it is. Of course, you can come close to it as much you want, and then you can have a very compact star and so on. But that is the one model. The another model is the entire universe itself, everything in the universe. The model of the universe is as per the Copernican principle. You all know what is the Copernican principle? Yes, what is the Copernican principle?
No, sir.
Okay, so universe, I thought this is fairly standard. Anyway, so what Copernican principle says is that the universe looks same in all position. There is no significant importance attached to your position in the universe. So this is a significant difference. Historically, we have started with the model of the universe, where we assume that we are center of universe, and then all these stars, planets go around us, and then you would have the stars, which are like a dome, and then you can peep outside and see what is outside. I don't know. So this was an imagination where you were the center of the universe. The Copernicus somehow realized that this is no good. So this is so-called egocentric universe is not very good. So it means that the universe will be no point in the universe will have any significance. That means every point in the universe is same. Now you see that there is a correspondence here. Now, since every point in the universe is same, you might take yourself actually as a center of the universe itself. There is no harm doing it. But you have to understand that every other point also has a same significance. So what is this mathematically means? What does the universe means? That it is looks same in every direction. Okay, universe looks same in every direction. So what does it mean? If we are a center of universe and we look at in all direction, Universe looks same. There is no difference. On a very large scale, it is true. On a small scale, it is not true, because you first sitting in your room, you will see that it is isn't all that same from every direction. There are things which are not very similar looking from every side. Then you go to the scale of Earth, then you find that that is also not very good, because Earth is also not very homogeneous, and so on. Then you go to solar system scale. Solar system scale is an astronomical unit. 1 AU is a distance between Sun and Earth, is of the order of 10 to the power 11 meters, and the whole solar system is about 100 to 200 astronomical unit. On that scale also, it doesn't look anywhere close to the homogeneous and isotropic. We go to next scale. The next scale is our galaxy. The galaxy is contain the star like Sun of the order of 10 to the power 11 stars. You might have seen the images of galaxy taken nearby, the reconstruction on our own galaxy from observations. They are also don't look anywhere close to homogeneous and isotropic. There are 10 to the power 11 stars which go around in a disc-like shape for our galaxy, what we call is a spiral galaxy. There are elliptical galaxies too. Now, as you go to bigger scale, there is something called local cluster, where hundreds and thousands of these galaxies form together, form a local group, about 100. Then you go to larger scale. They are also not very homogeneous and isotropic. And then when you go to local cluster, where there are clusters of galaxies, there are thousands of galaxies, which is the you see, and one of the example is our own cluster, and our nearby cluster is called Virgo cluster, and they are all about thousands of galaxies. So it doesn't look they are also anywhere close to the isotropy or homogeneity which we're talking about, which looks anywhere close to the universe which we are talking about. So let me quickly share my screen here with you. Let's change the screen tab. I need to share a tab. This is a Wikipedia page. So it is to give you the, can you see the page?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is how it whole thing starts. It's an extremely large resolution image. So you have your planet, solar system, local, the neighborhood, and then you have stars nearby our sun. Then you have galaxy, then the local group, then you have a local cluster, then you have a superclusters. Superclusters have again thousands of stars, and then comes to universe itself. Universe itself has about 10 to the power 11 galaxies, few billions of that many galaxies are together. When you look at the universe on that scale, it looks almost homogeneous and isotropic. So if you look at if you take a glass of water, okay, and then keep magnifying it, and so on, then at one stage you would get what you call is a water molecule. Now you say that compared to the glass of whole glass of water, this molecule is almost continuous. That is how we treat. We don't treat glass of water as a individual oxygen, not a water molecule. So this water molecule combined together, what we say is the glass of water is basically a fluid, because the size of molecule is completely irrelevant, and what you see macroscopically is simply the water or the fluid. Now, if you draw the same analogy here, analogy of the hydrogen, not hydrogen, water molecule is galaxy. Galaxy is the smallest entity of the universe when you consider on the large scale. Of course, we know that the galaxy is made up of stars, planets, and those don't count when you talk about universe. When you talk about universe, the galaxy itself is the smallest unit, and you don't consider anything smaller than that. With that, and compared to the glass of water, universe is far, far better a fluid than the glass of water. That means that the galaxies, when compared, are much smaller compared to the hydrogen molecule. So this means that all these galaxies which are rolling around, going around in the universe, can be treated as a fluid, and that is a justification for using the perfect fluid as your cosmological source. Now, coming to the homogeneity and isotropy, or the Copernican principle. The Copernican principle says that we are no significant. That means our position is equal to anyone else's position. That means when we stand in our place and watch the universe, it looks same. This mathematically means that the universe is rotational invariant. So in this case, you stop at in this. Oh, okay, I need to change. Now you see that you take any one of the galaxies and watching from any direction in this mess, all things look same. Individual galaxies just look like a point particle, or even smaller than the point particle. So that is why it looks completely a fluid-like situation, and then there is nothing you can make out from one to another, and it is completely rotational invariance. And then that is what we call is the first part of a Copernican principle. The universe is rotational invariant at every point. The second point, as per the Copernican principle, is that you can stay at one point in the universe and move to another point. You are not happy with your Earth, you go to another place and start watching. It does not make any difference. So that means you can easily go from one place to another place in the universe, settle there without knowing where exactly you are. So that means that the universe is what you call translational invariant. At each point. Mind you, this is at each point, not at one point. So together, these things, what it leads to what is known as a maximal symmetry. That means the universe should be same everywhere, and there can't be anything more symmetric than the universe itself. So for that, we can write down the metric element. It is fairly straightforward to write down. If the three-dimensional space, time is not included in that. It is a three-dimensional geometry, which we are saying is a completely homogeneous and isotropic, and the metric for such case can be written as spatial component only, as a overall factor into dr square into 1 minus r square plus r square d theta square plus sine square theta d phi square. So this is the metric which is homogeneous and isotropic. You can simply do a exercise, simple exercise, calculate the Einstein's equation, what is that? Ricci tensor, Riemann tensor, Ricci tensor, and so on. You would see that the universe for the spatial component has this Ricci tensor as a constant. Okay, so this we have seen when the metric, the Riemann tensor itself can be written in terms of the metric outer product of metric, and then the Riemann curvature become constant, and that is what we have. You can show that it has all the killing vectors. The maximum allowed killing vector in a three-dimensional space is a 3 into 3 plus 1 by 2 minus 2, and that is what you have. So that is where you have all symmetries there. It has 3 rotational invariants and 3 translational invariants, and all combined, this is a metric you have. You can try it out. We will continue with this. If you have some questions, you can ask, and we will continue in the next class. Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, let me stop the recording.